You've given us a lot to work with here. Articles, research notes, all circling around a really big question.
Yeah, how does the Philippine justice system actually tackle high-level corruption?
Exactly. And specifically, what's the role of the state witness program in that whole fight? Especially with this flood control scandal that's blowing up right now.
So that's our mission today. We're going to unpack the state witness program
Try and cut through some of that dense legal jargon.
and really explore its impact, which, let's be honest, is often pretty controversial.
Very much in the spirit of the late Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago, who never shied away from these tough issues.
What we're really diving into is, how justice gets done when the evidence is just buried deep.
Under layers of power, influence, secrecy.
Right. It's a fascinating tool, this program. Complex, definitely ethically tricky sometimes.
And understanding it is absolutely key if you want to make sense of the headlines today.
From the echoes of the pork barrel scam all the way to the current infrastructure mess, involving people like the Discayas and these mysterious BGC boys.
Okay, let's jump right in. First off, this term state witness. It carries a lot of baggage, doesn't it?
It really does. You hear things like snitch, rat. It immediately sounds like betrayal, like some kind of moral failing.
Here's a real gut reaction.
But if you're following these big corruption cases closely, you know it's way more complicated than that simple label.
A state witness isn't just someone changing sides. They're often a critical piece of the puzzle for the justice system.
We're talking about someone who is involved in the crime, yes, but then makes an agreement.
An agreement to testify against their former partners, their co-accused.
And in return, they might get immunity, not prosecuted for that particular crime, or they get protection, real serious protection for themselves, maybe their family too.
And look, it's not about saying what they did initially was okay.
Not at all. It's more like a strategic choice the state makes.
A trade-off, really.
Exactly, to achieve something bigger. Holding these larger, often untouchable criminal networks accountable.
Think about it in these really complex graft cases. Evidence gets deliberately hidden. Power players use shell companies, bureaucracy.
Yeah, the usual methods. Traditional investigation sometimes just hits a dead end.
So without an insider, someone who's willing to speak out, to reveal what happened behind closed doors.
A lot of the really big fish, the masterminds, they just get away with it.
So it's not just about the witness saving their own skin. Often, it's the only real leverage the prosecution has to untangle these massive schemes.
And that directly affects public trust, right? Either it builds it up when you get convictions,
or it fuels cynicism when the system fails, when witnesses are silenced, or the program seems misused.
So today we're going to break all that down. We'll look at the legal side, how it started, how it's changed.
What protections are supposed to be there.
Then we'll walk through what it actually takes for someone to become a state witness. It's a grueling journey, a huge personal cost.
Definitely. And we'll get into the impact, the controversies, using real examples from the Philippines.
Right up to this flood control scandal that's happening now.
And we'll look beyond the courtroom, too. What's the future of this?
And all through this, you'll hear echoes of Senator Santiago's voice, her push for truth, for a strong, credible witness protection system.
Because right now, as we're talking, this flood control thing is developing fast. The Discayas, these construction firm owners, they might be stepping up.
And their fate, whether they get protection, it all hinges on how this program works.
Okay, so let's get into the foundations, the legal framework. Where did this whole idea come from?
Well, the basic concept isn't exactly new. It goes way back, actually, to common law, Old English tradition.
Right, the idea of an accomplice turning king's evidence to save themselves.
Exactly. But in the Philippines, it got properly formalized, codified, with Republic Act 6981.
That's the Witness Protection, Security, and Benefit Act of 1991. A key piece of legislation.
Absolutely landmark, because it wasn't just about immunity, it set up a whole system. Security, relocation, even help with livelihood for witnesses in serious crimes, these grave felonies.
And the rules, the implementing rules, they spell out exactly how the Department of Justice, the DOJ, vets people, how they decide who gets in.
Now, fast forward 30 plus years, and like any system, it's faced challenges, needed tweaks.
History shows witnesses faced huge risks, real intimidation. There were high-profile failures early on.
Definitely. That casts a long shadow. Now, in the last, say, 5 years, 2020 to 2025, we haven't seen massive reforms, but there's constant pressure.
There are ongoing efforts, like this House Bill 02340 from 2025.
Right, that one specifically aims to strengthen protections under RA 6981. Maybe better security, maybe more support.
And interestingly, it also proposes tougher penalties for witnesses who don't cooperate fully, kind of a stick to go with the carrot.
Which is a strong motivator, potentially. But look, the criticism hasn't gone away.
No, human rights groups still raise flags, concerns about fairness, consistency.
And the big one, the potential for politics to interfere. Influencing who gets accepted into the program, especially in sensitive cases.
So at the core of the legal side, you have specific rules, like Rule 119, Section 17 of the Rules of Court.
That's a critical one. It lays out how someone already accused can be discharged, essentially switched to become a state witness.
But it's not automatic. There are very strict conditions.
Crucially, they cannot be the most guilty. Their testimony has to be absolutely essential, indispensable.
Meaning, without what they offer, the prosecution's case against the main players would probably just fall apart.
It's a high bar, and hearing those criteria, you can't help but think of Senator Santiago's very clear stance on this.
Let's hear her.
Mario ko na lang. Sabi ng korte, rules of court. The rules of the Court of Justice. Ang akusado, hindi dapat napawalang sala. Maliban lang kung siya ang paraan para madakip at makulong ang mga talagang malaki ang kasalanan nila. Pero akusado nag-apply maging state witness, dapat he must meet 5 criteria. 5 ang listahan ng husgado eh. Number 1, there's an absolute necessity for your testimony. Number 2, there is no direct evidence against the others. Number 3, your testimony is substantially corroborated on all important points by other witnesses. At itong pinakamahalaga, that the accused is not the most guilty. Kaya marami nagsasabi, pag umabot na sa korte at nag-apply kang maging state witness, hindi ka dapat payagan ng korteng maging state witness dahil sabi nila, ikaw ang pinaka-most guilty. Kaya importante, napapatunay mo, ngayon pa lang, sa umpisa pa lang, na hindi ikaw ang pinaka-most guilty. Dahil kung ikaw ang most guilty, hindi ka na pwedeng mag-state witness, wala ka ng paraan na makalusot pa, maliban lang sa kung ma-acquit ka ng korte after a full trial, no? So, lahat tayo, kung nakaharap dito sa demanda ng kamukha ng iyon na napakabigat ng parusa, ay gustuhin na lang natin mag-state witness. Kaya lang importante dyan, you should not be the most guilty.
Exactly, and court decisions, many from her time, have reinforced this, even if the witness benefited from the crime.
Which they often did, being involved. Right. They can still qualify if they weren't the primary mastermind, and their testimony is truly vital. Senator Santiago argued this forcefully in the pork barrel cases. It was about pragmatism, getting the bigger conviction.
And today, with these new corruption probes in 2025, these same rules are back under the microscope.
Not just legally, but practically, too. Do they need updating for the digital age? Better digital security for witnesses, for example. Now, actually becoming a state witness, that's a whole other journey. It's definitely not easy. It's a massive, life-changing decision. And the process is intense.
How does it usually start?
Typically, initial contact. The potential witness, maybe through their lawyer, reaches out to the DOJ or the prosecutor.
Saying, I have information.
Pretty much. But it's not just a casual chat. They need to lay out what they know, show that their information is valuable, credible.
Then comes the evaluation phase.
Right, and this is where prosecutors really dig in. Does this person meet those strict legal requirements we talked about?
Is their testimony really needed? Does it back up other evidence, or does it fill gaps nothing else can?
And that key question again, are they truly not the most guilty one in the group?
That point is so vital for the program's legitimacy, making sure the real architects don't just use someone else to get off lightly.
Absolutely. And thinking about those specific criteria again, another voice comes to mind emphasizing just that.
Who's that?
Well, let's hear it.
Kasi ang isang dyan, of course, pwede silang pumasok. Possible, pero hindi tayo sigurado. Those are not the most guilty. Second, yung materiality ng kanilang testimonya na kayang i-corroborate ng independent evidence. Yun yung mga patakaran eh.
Okay, so if they pass that rigorous evaluation,
then a formal agreement gets signed. This is the contract, basically. It grants them immunity for the specific crimes they're testifying about.
and that's when the Witness Protection Program, the WPP, fully kicks in.
Yeah, and that protection can be incredibly comprehensive. We're talking new identities, secure housing.
Sometimes even moving them abroad.
Yes, if the risk is high enough. Plus, round-the-clock security, financial help to start over. It's a big commitment from the state.
But you mentioned it's not always perfect?
No, definitely not foolproof. Look at the DeLima case back in 2022. Some key witnesses suddenly recanted. They claimed they were pressure coerced.
Which throws everything into question.
Exactly. Regardless of what really happened, incidents like that damage public trust. They highlight just how much pressure these witnesses are under.
And beyond the legal side, the personal cost, the psychological aspect must be immense.
Oh, huge. Imagine being cut off from your family, maybe forever, living in constant fear.
The moral weight, too. Betraying people you were once close to, even if they were criminals.
It's a massive burden. Think about Ben-Hur Louis in the pork barrel scam. He was Janet Nichols' cousin.
Right, the alleged mastermind.
He faced threats, immense pressure, but he provided those ledgers, the detailed evidence that blew the whole thing open. His testimony and the protection he got were crucial.
And now we see the Discayas in this flood control probe. Construction company owners coming forward saying they paid huge bribes.
And the DOJ is right now evaluating them for the WPP. It's that same high-stakes personal battle playing out again.
So let's talk impact. State witnesses have clearly been game changers in some massive cases here.
Absolutely pivotal. You can't discuss this without bringing up the PDAF scandal, the pork barrel scam.
That dominated headlines in the 2010s, but the effects are still felt. Billions of pesos.
Billions from lawmakers' funds, supposedly for development, just vanished into ghost projects via fake NGOs, allegedly run by Janet Lim Naples.
And how did it unravel?
Insiders, people like Ben-Hur Louis, other employees of Naples, they turned state witness.
They provided the proof.
The ledgers, the bank details, the first-hand accounts of how the system worked, that testimony was devastating. It led to convictions.
Including Nichols herself, eventually sentenced to decades in prison.
Right. And it's worth noting, she actually tried to become a state witness later in related cases.
But she was rejected.
Yes, deemed too guilty, the main architect, not someone who could qualify under the rules.
Okay, so fast forward to now, 2025. This infrastructure scam involving flood control projects.
And we have the Discayas coming forward, allegedly exposing the system where contractors had to pay massive bribes, like 40%.
40%? To DPWH officials, maybe even lawmakers, just to get contracts.
It's a staggering allegation. And then you have this other strange element, the BGC boys.
These DPWH engineers from Bulacan.
Reportedly, yes. And they allegedly lost almost 1 billion pesos, P950 million in casinos.
Wow. And the suspicion is that money could be laundered proceeds from the scam.
That's what investigators seem to be looking at. So the Discayas testimony, if it pans out, could be the key to taking down this whole network.
Just like Louis' testimony was for the pork barrel scheme.
Potentially, yes. But this program is always controversial, isn't it?
Always. The ethics are constantly debated. Is it really fair to grant immunity even to a lesser player when they were involved in the crime?
It's that core dilemma. Senator Santiago, known for her sharp legal mind, often argued it was a necessary evil.
A pragmatic tool you sometimes just had to use to get the bigger culprits.
Exactly. She saw it as essential for justice when traditional evidence wasn't enough. Catching a monster sometimes requires help from someone who knows its habits.
But the critics have a point too. Does it let mid-level people off too easily? Does it create an incentive structure that feels wrong?
It's a valid concern. Does it foster a sense that if you know enough, you can escape serious consequences? And thinking about who should qualify, who is truly lesser. Well, there's that phrase again.
Let's hear it one more time. You must be not the most guilty.
So, yung witness protection program, legitimate na remedyo ito eh. Nasa batas ito eh. Pagkatapos sinabi niya, hindi ko basta ma-approve yan, kinakailangan mo nang isoli muna niya yung mga nakulimbat nila.
Ito na ito.
Paano mangyayari yun? Yung sinasabi niyang restitution or indemnification, hindi kasali yun eh. Wala yun sa requirement eh.
And technology is changing this whole equation too.
How so?
Well, with digital footprints everywhere, bank transfers, emails, messages, location data, you'd think we'd rely less on human testimony.
We have more objective evidence.
Theoretically, but look at the Farmally case, the COVID supplies procurement issues back in 2021. Even with tons of data, witnesses were still needed.
To provide context, explain the why and how.
Exactly, to fill in the gaps, explain intent, connect the dots in ways the data alone couldn't. Numbers don't always tell the full story.
And then there's the issue of recantations, like we saw with the DeLima case. That really shakes confidence.
It absolutely fuels distrust, raises questions about testimony reliability, pressure, coercion.
Yeah.
It complicates everything. But the impact goes way beyond just specific court cases and convictions.
Right. Think about the broader effect on crime fighting.
When it works well, this program can seriously disrupt criminal organizations. It breaks that code of silence, that omerta.
Makes it riskier for corruption rings to operate if they know insiders might talk.
Exactly. And successful cases, like parts of the pork barrel prosecution, they can actually boost public trust. It shows the system can work even against powerful people.
Which hopefully acts as a deterrent for future would-be corrupt officials.
That's the hope. But the flip side is also true. When the program fails,
If witnesses are harmed, if there are credible claims of political interference, if cases collapse due to recantations,
then public trust plummets. People become cynical, wary of the whole justice system. It feeds the narrative that it's all rigged anyway.
so looking forward, how might this evolve?
Well, technology will definitely play a bigger role. Imagine AI analyzing financial data, communications.
Finding patterns humans might miss.
Precisely. Sifting through massive amounts of information to spot anomalies, connect seemingly unrelated players.
So the witness's role might change. Maybe less purely testimonial, more about confirming or explaining digital evidence.
Could be a sort of hybrid approach. Human testimony validated and supplemented by digital forensics.
What about reforms? What's needed?
Better funding for the WPP is almost always mentioned. Real resources for robust long-term security and support.
Especially for witnesses who need relocation.
Yes, and maybe stronger international agreements to help protect witnesses relocated abroad.
It really boils down to courage and integrity, doesn't it? The courage of the witness, the integrity of the system protecting them.
Absolutely. The program hinges on the idea that sometimes the truth has to come from the inside.
So the big question for you, listening to this, is where do you stand? In this ongoing battle against corruption, how effective can this tool be?
Does it need a major overhaul, perhaps in the spirit of someone like Senator Santiago? How do we balance the need for insider testimony with the demands of fairness and reliability?
Lots to think about.
Definitely.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the State Witness Program. We hope it's giving you a clearer, maybe more nuanced perspective.
It's a complex issue, but a vital one for understanding how justice operates, or sometimes struggles to operate, in the face of corruption.
Until next time, stay informed and keep asking those important questions.